The hotel lobby smelled like lavender and fresh polish. It was the kind of scent that tried hard to be calming, but couldn't quite hide the tension floating in the air. Behind the marble counter, a young man in a navy vest stood stiff, fingers tapping against the keyboard with bored rhythm. He had seen 5 guests check in this morning, each one with too many bags and not enough patience. He didn't expect the 6th guest to be anyone different. Then the front doors slid open quietly. A man walked in wearing a plain black jacket, jeans, and worn brown boots. His hair was tied back loosely, a black backpack slung over one shoulder. There was no fanfare, no assistant, no entourage, just a soft walk and a tired but gentle look in his eyes. The clerk barely looked up. Name. The man stepped forward and placed his ID on the counter. The clerk glanced down and immediately rolled his eyes. "You're kidding," he muttered under his breath, almost not loud enough to hear, but the man heard it. His name was right there on the ID. Reeves. Keanu didn't react. He simply smiled. "I'm checking in," he said kindly. The clerk gave a forced smile and started typing. "We didn't expect." "Well, someone like you," he said. His tone was sharp, not excited, more like judgmental curiosity wrapped in sarcasm. Keanu nodded. "I needed a quiet place to finish some writing. His hotel seemed perfect." The clerk scanned the screen lazily, then reached behind the desk and grabbed a keycard. He slid it across the marble. "Room 615. Elevators are to your left." Keanu picked up the keycard gently. "Thank you," he said softly, looking the clerk in the eyes. But the clerk didn't meet his gaze. He was already back at his screen. Scrolling, Keanu turned and walked toward the elevators, in the reflection of the polished brass doors. He could see the clerk lean over and whisper something to the woman next to him at the concierge desk. They both chuckled. Keanu paused, just for a second. Then the doors opened and he stepped inside. Up in room 615, the silence wrapped around him like a soft coat. The curtains were drawn open, showing a view of the city skyline blurred by early morning fog. Keanu placed his backpack on the chair, took off his jacket, and sat by the window. He opened his notebook. It was filled with scribbles, thoughts, lines of dialogue that hadn't yet found their place. But his mind wasn't on the script. His mind was downstairs. At the front desk, he wasn't angry, not really. He had seen that look before, the eye roll, smirk, the quiet laugh behind someone's back. Most people thought fame was a shield, that it made the world easier. Sometimes it did, but more often, it made people assume things. They thought they knew you just because they'd seen your face on a screen. They didn't see the years of grief, the lonely nights in cheap hotels, the moments you wondered if anything you did really mattered. Keanu sat quietly for a long time. Then he smiled to himself. He picked up his phone. Downstairs, the lobby buzzed with new check-ins. The clerk's name was Liam. He had been working at the hotel for only 3 months. He didn't hate the job, but he didn't love it either. It paid enough, and the uniform made him look respectable. But his dreams had been bigger once. Liam used to act. Small theater roles, student films. It's nothing major, but enough to make him feel alive. Until rent got expensive and auditions dried up. He had seen Keanu's face 100 times. Action movies, dramas, even those quiet roles where he barely spoke, but still said everything with his eyes. Liam didn't hate Keanu, didn't even really dislike him. But when he saw him walk in, wearing boots that looked 5 years old and no security detail, something inside him twisted. He thought, why do people like that get everything handed to them? And so he rolled his eyes, and so he whispered a joke. He didn't think the man would hear. He didn't think it mattered. A few hours later, Liam's shift was ending. He was gathering his things when the concierge walked over with an envelope. "Someone left this for you," she said. Liam frowned. "Who?" "Room 615. He blinked. "Keanu Reeves." She nodded. He took the envelope, hesitating. Inside were 2 movie tickets. But not just any tickets. They were premiere passes for a private screening, something hosted by the studio downtown. The kind of event that regular people never got invited to. Liam stared at them, tucked between. The tickets was a handwritten note. "Hi, Liam. Sometimes people see your face and assume they know your story. But I've learned the hard way, we all carry things no one can see. You said nothing when I came in, but I heard enough. It's okay. I just thought you might enjoy these. You once dreamed something. Maybe you still do. Peace. Keanu sat down. His hands were trembling. For a long time, didn't say a word. Upstairs, Keanu watched the city lights flicker on one by one. The fog had lifted. In the silence, he sipped tea and wrote down one line in his notebook. People are quick to judge what they never took the time to understand. He leaned back and closed his eyes, because the truth was, he had once been Liam too. Young, bitter, disappointed, but he had met someone once who gave him a chance. Not because he deserved it, but because kindness doesn't always wait for an explanation. And now, years later, it was his turn. That night, Liam didn't sleep. He sat on his bed. Staring at the tickets, he remembered the stage lights. He remembered how it felt to speak someone else's words and still feel more like himself than he ever did in real life. He didn't know why Keanu had chosen kindness. He didn't know what he'd do with the tickets yet, but for the first time in months, he didn't feel stuck, and he couldn't stop thinking about that note. You once dreamed something. Maybe you still do. Liam showed up to work early the next morning. Too early. The lobby lights were still dim, and the only sounds were soft footsteps from housekeeping. He didn't even clock in right away. Instead, he stood behind the front desk, just staring. At the counter where Keanu had placed his ID the day before, the envelope was still in his pocket. He'd read the note 5 times last night. It didn't feel real. The words weren't dramatic or fancy. They were just honest, and that made them hit harder. Liam couldn't explain it, but something inside him had shifted. Not suddenly, not like magic. Just enough to make him feel like he had been wrong about something, maybe about someone. He didn't like how he had acted. And even worse, he knew Keanu had every reason to ignore him. But instead of calling the manager or asking to switch hotels, he had written a note and left a gift, not to impress, not to make a scene, but quietly. Like a whisper that carried too far, Liam took a breath and looked around. Then he did something he hadn't done in months. He took out his phone and opened his old casting app. Keanu stepped out of the elevator that morning wearing the same boots and the same jacket. No one noticed him walk past the coffee bar. A few people in the lobby glanced up, but no one stared. He liked that. He wasn't there to be seen. He was there to work on something that had been sitting with him for too long. A story about second chances. About a man who lost everything and didn't want it back until he met someone who reminded him that kindness still existed in the world. But he couldn't write that story in Los Angeles. There's too many noises, too many distractions. He'd picked this small hotel in a quiet part of town, not perfect, but honest, and honesty mattered more than perfection. As he approached the front desk, Liam looked up. Their eyes met. "Good morning, Mr. Reeves," Liam said. His voice was softer this time, not fake, not formal, just simple. Keanu smiled. "Morning." Liam reached under the counter. "I took the liberty of setting aside some coffee for you." "It's the roast you ordered yesterday." Keanu raised an eyebrow.
Thank you.
"That's kind of you." Liam handed him a cup with a lid, and, I read the note, he said, voice low. "I just wanted to say I'm sorry about yesterday." Keanu looked at him for a moment, then nodded. "Thanks. That takes courage." Liam swallowed. "I used to act," he added, like the words had been waiting all morning. "Before all this, I mean. Before I gave up." Keanu didn't answer right away. He took a sip of the coffee, then leaned a little closer. "It's not over unless you want it to be," he said. "You still have a voice." Those words didn't feel like encouragement. They felt like truth. Liam watched Keanu walk out toward the cafe area and sit by the window with his notebook. He didn't open it right away, just looked out, eyes steady, fingers resting against the paper, like it was fragile for the first time. Liam saw the man, not the celebrity, not the movie star. Just someone who had probably been told he wasn't good enough once too, maybe even more than once. And yet here he was. Liam checked his phone. The casting app was still open. A small alert had popped up. Open call for background. Actors. Local commercial. No experience needed. He hesitated and tapped it. Applied. It was small. Probably paid nothing. But it was something. That afternoon, the hotel manager called for a meeting. Apparently, there had been a minor complaint from another guest. Nothing serious, just someone unhappy about their room view. Liam sat through the meeting half distracted. All he could think about was that note. After the meeting, he returned to the desk. But as soon as he sat down, the concierge leaned over. "Hey," she whispered. "You know the guest from room 615? "Yeah," Liam said, careful. "He's giving a small talk tonight, private event. Just 10 people. It's not public, but I think you're on the list." Liam blinked. "Me?" She nodded. "Your name was handwritten." That evening, Liam stood in front of the rooftop lounge, nervous. He wasn't dressed fancy, just a clean shirt and jacket. He wasn't sure what to expect. Was this going to be some movie promo? A press thing? But as he walked in, he saw no cameras. No crew, just a circle of chairs. Keanu stood by the far wall, adjusting something on a projector. He looked up when Liam entered and smiled. "You made it," he said. Liam nodded. "Wasn't sure if I'd be out of place." "No one's out." "Of place?" Keanu said. "We're all just people trying to figure things out. 10 chairs. 9 others. And 1 table in the center with tea, a few snacks, and a single notebook." Keanu didn't lecture that night. He just talked. He told them about his early days, about being rejected over and over, about how he'd once lived in a tiny apartment, with almost no furniture because he couldn't afford anything else. He told them how people laughed at his voice, his expression, his silence, but he kept going. Not because he was sure he would succeed, but because he didn't know how to stop. Trying, Liam listened to every word. Somewhere in the middle, he forgot that he was talking to someone famous. The voice wasn't polished. It was raw, sometimes slow, sometimes trembling, but always real. After the talk, Liam stayed behind. He walked up to the table, unsure what to say. Keanu packed up slowly. "You okay?" he asked. Liam nodded. I didn't expect that. Any of it. People never do," Keanu said, "but that's why it matters." Liam hesitated. "I applied to a casting call today." Keanu smiled gently. "That's a start. I don't know if it'll go anywhere. Doesn't have to not right away. Just keep walking." Liam looked down at the table. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why?" "Me," Keanu paused. "Because you looked like someone who needed to remember he still mattered," he said. "And someone once did the same for me." Later that night, Liam sat alone in his apartment. The city buzzed outside his window, but it felt distant, muted. He pulled out a box from under his bed. It was old and dusty. Inside were scripts, playbills, photos from rehearsals. Memories he had tried to bury because they hurt too much. He flipped through them slowly, then stopped at a picture of himself on stage. Lights shining, arms raised, grin on his face. He stared at it for a long time, and finally he smiled back. Upstairs, Keanu sat by the window again, notebook open, pen in hand. He scribbled down the line he had been waiting for. Kindness doesn't always fix everything. Sometimes it's the first crack in the wall. He closed the notebook outside. The city lights flickered like stars. He didn't know if Liam would chase the dream again, but he knew one thing. He had done his part. The next morning felt different. Liam stood in front of the mirror, brushing his hair without rushing. There was no big moment coming, no spotlight, no guaranteed future. But there was a feeling in his chest he hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. He buttoned up his shirt and looked around his small apartment. The cracked ceiling, the sink that dripped sometimes, the half-finished shelf leaning slightly to the left. None of it had changed overnight, but something inside him had. He checked his phone. No calls, no casting replies yet. But the app showed that his profile had been viewed twice. It wasn't much, but it was a spark. Sparks were how wildfires started. As he locked the door and walked down the stairs, he carried one thing with him: Keanu's voice in his head. Steady and calm. "You still have a voice downstairs." The hotel lobby was already buzzing with guests checking out and staff preparing for a conference. Liam moved behind the front desk, slipping into his usual rhythm. But it didn't feel routine anymore when the concierge leaned over and whispered that Keanu had requested breakfast in the lounge instead of his room. Liam offered to take it up himself. "You sure?" she asked. "He probably just wanted peace." "Won't stay," Liam said. "I just want to thank him." She nodded and handed him the tray. Keanu was seated near the back corner of the lounge, notebook open, one hand tracing the edge of his cup. Sunlight poured in through the tall windows, lighting up his face in a way that made him look both younger and more tired. When Liam approached, Keanu looked up and smiled. "Breakfast delivery?" the head softly. "On the house," Liam replied, placing the tray down. "Well, not really. But if the manager asks, we'll say it was." Keanu chuckled gently. "Thank you," Liam hesitated, then sat across from him. "I don't want to bother you. You're not." Liam took a breath. "I didn't sleep much last night. I kept thinking about what you said. About kindness. About second chances. And I don't know why it hit me so hard." Keanu sipped his tea. "Because deep down, you never stopped caring." Liam looked down at his hands. "I gave up," he admitted. "Not all at once. It was slow. One rejection, then another. Then one day I just stopped showing up." "That's not giving up," Keanu said. "That's protecting yourself." "There's a difference." Liam looked up. "But you're here now," Keanu added. That means something." Later that day, Liam got a text from an unknown number. "Hi, Liam. This is Nora from casting. Saw your profile. Are you free Thursday for a commercial test shoot?" Liam stared at it. He read it twice, 3 times. Then he laughed. It wasn't loud. Just a quiet, surprised sound that broke through the silence of his small break room. He typed back quickly, "Yes, I'm free. Thank you." And just like that, something shifted again. Keanu, meanwhile, stayed mostly in his room that day. He didn't leave for interviews or meetings. He didn't have a schedule to keep. The film he was writing hadn't been sold yet. There was no deadline, just a deep need to finish it honestly. He paced the room with his notebook in one hand, whispering lines to himself. Crossing them out, rewriting, he paused only when a soft knock came at the door. He opened it to find the hotel's head of guest services standing there nervously. "Mr. Reeves," she said, "I hope you're enjoying your stay." Keanu smiled. "Politely, I am. We just wanted to apologize again for the check-in experience. I heard there may have been a misunderstanding." Keanu shook his head gently. "No need. Sometimes people have bad days." The woman hesitated. "That's very gracious of you," she said. "Also, a local youth center reached out. They heard you were in town and asked if you'd consider speaking to their teens. Completely your choice, of course." Keanu paused. "How many kids?" "About 30. They run an after-school program for theater students." He nodded slowly. "Tell them I'll stop by tomorrow." The next evening, Liam sat in his apartment, preparing for the test shoot. He had no idea what to wear, so he went with a clean black tee and a denim jacket. It wasn't flashy, but it was him. Before leaving, he glanced once more at the envelope Keanu had given him. The tickets were still tucked inside, but the note. The note was pinned to his wall now. He whispered, it once under his breath, "You once dreamed something. Maybe you still do." The studio for the commercial shoot was nothing like Liam imagined. It wasn't glamorous. It's just a rented loft with basic lights and a team of 4 people moving quickly. Still, as he stepped in front of the camera, he felt something unlock inside him. He remembered how to move, how to feel. He didn't nail every line, but he didn't freeze either after the take. One of the producers walked over and clapped him on the shoulder. "You've done this before," she said. "Long time ago," Liam replied. "Well," she smiled, "you should keep doing it." At the hotel, Keanu stepped into the community center's makeshift theater. 30 students sat in folding chairs, some whispering excitedly, others pretending they weren't impressed. They had expected a video call, maybe. Not for Keanu Reeves. To actually show up? He didn't give a speech. He asked questions. Why do you act? He asked one girl in the front row. Because it's the only time I feel like I can breathe, she said, blinking back tears. He nodded. That's reason enough. He talked to them for an hour, not about Hollywood, not about money, but about heart, failure, staying open even when the world tried to close you off. As he left, one of the boys called out, "Mr. Reeves." Keanu turned. "Do you think we'll make it?" Keanu didn't answer right away. Then he said, "You already have." God, you haven't stopped trying. That night, Liam returned to the hotel just before midnight. The lobby was quiet. Number 1 was at the desk. He walked past slowly, heading toward the elevator. But then he stopped. There was a soft light coming from the lounge. He peeked in. Keanu was there alone, writing by hand under a single lamp. Liam hesitated, then walked in. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. Keanu looked up and smiled. "Something like that." No. Liam sat down. "I went to a shoot today, just a test one for a commercial." "How'd it go?" "I wasn't amazing," Liam said. "But I wasn't bad either. That's a good start." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Liam said, "You changed something in me." Keanu shook his head. "You just remembered who you were," he replied. "But you changed yourself." The morning after the test shoot, Liam woke up before his alarm. Sunlight hadn't even touched the windows yet, but he sat up in bed like something had pulled him out of sleep. His heart was calm, but his mind was racing. He didn't dream about fame. He didn't picture red carpets or fans shouting his name. What he saw in his mind was much smaller and much more honest. A quiet stage, a dark room, or a few strangers leaning in to listen. Him standing there, heart open, finally speaking. Again, he had forgotten how that felt. The casting agent hadn't called back yet, and maybe she wouldn't. But Liam didn't care. For the first time in years, he was chasing something that made him feel alive. That was enough. He made coffee and sat by the window in silence. His fingers itched to write something. Anything. So he grabbed an old notebook and just began. Not a script, not a monologue, just truth. Lines that came from somewhere deep and tired and hungry. Meanwhile, somewhere in the same building, Keanu Reeves was doing the same thing. 2 stories, growing in silence. That afternoon, the hotel was louder than usual. A conference was being hosted in the ballroom, and the place was swarming with people in suits. The front desk was backed up, phones ringing, guests getting impatient. Liam was thrown into the chaos like everyone else. He moved quickly, checking in guests, fixing room keys, answering questions. And then between a woman demanding extra towels and a man complaining about parking, he heard something that made him stop. "Isn't that Keanu Reeves over there?" Liam turned. A group of young men in suits were standing across the lobby. One of them pointing toward the lounge. Keanu was there, seated quietly with his notebook, a tea in front of him. "What's he even doing here?" One of them whispered, probably trying to be mysterious. Another laughed. "Doesn't even look famous," he chuckled. Not cruelly, but not kindly either. Liam clenched his jaw. Part of him wanted to ignore it. Just let it pass. But something rose in him, something that wasn't about defending a celebrity. It was about defending someone who had treated him with quiet respect when he hadn't earned it. Liam walked over. "Hey," he said gently. "He's working. Just let him be." The men turned to look at him. "You work here?" one asked. "Yeah." Liam said, "Well, we're paying guests too, and I'm asking you, please respect his space." The men exchanged looks. One of them shrugged. They turned and walked away, half laughing, half annoyed. Liam sighed. He expected Keanu to have overheard, but when he glanced over, Keanu was still there. Head down, writing slowly, like the world didn't touch him unless he let it. Later that evening, Liam was getting ready to leave his shift when he saw an envelope sitting on the counter. It was blank. No room number. Just his name written across the front in clean handwriting. He opened it. Inside was a single folded note. "Liam, I heard what you said. Thank you." Kitita was all. 4 words, 1 initial. But Liam folded the paper carefully and tucked it into his pocket like it was gold. Meanwhile, in room 615, Keanu sat by the window again. His notebook was filling up quickly now. Not with polished lines, not with finished scenes, but with fragments that felt like truth. He wasn't writing for a studio anymore. Not for producers, not for box office numbers. He was writing for the kid who worked the front desk and forgot. He had something to say. He was writing for the version of himself who would almost quit before someone showed him kindness. He was writing for people who thought their quiet didn't matter because it did. The next day, Liam got another message. From casting, we liked your energy. Would you be open to auditioning for a larger speaking role in a short film? His throat tightened as he read it. He didn't reply right away, not because he wasn't sure, but because it felt big, not because of fame or money, but because someone saw something in him again. He texted back, yes, 100%. Just let me know when. That evening, he caught Keanu in the elevator. They rode in silence for a few floors, then Keanu said, "You look lighter today." Liam laughed softly. "I feel it." "Something happened? Got invited to audition?" For a real part, Keanu smiled. "You earned it." Liam nodded. It's just weird how fast things started to change. Keanu looked ahead. "Sometimes things don't change for years," he said quietly. Then suddenly, they change all at once. 2 nights later, Liam stood in front of a tiny theater in a nearby part of town. Audition wasn't fancy. No trailers, no makeup teams. Just a casting director, a cheap camera, and a small stage. But when he stepped under the spotlight, he didn't feel fear. He felt ready. He read the lines with everything he had. Not with perfection, but with truth. And when he finished, the room was quiet for a second. Then the casting director said, "Thank you. That was honest." And Liam nodded because he knew she meant it. That same night, Keanu sat on the rooftop of the hotel. He had tea in his hands and his notebook on the table beside him. He flipped to a new page. The loudest stories are not always the ones told through microphones. Sometimes they are whispered. Sometimes they are lived quietly and deeply. He closed the notebook. He had written something that mattered. Not for the world, just for one. The next morning, Liam returned to the hotel early. Not for his shift, but to drop something off. He handed a small envelope to the concierge. "Please give this to room 615, he said. Inside was a note. Handwritten. Simple. "Thank you for seeing something in me when I couldn't. I don't know where this road goes. But I've started walking again. You made that possible. With respect, Liam." Liam stood outside the small cafe just down the street from the hotel, hands in his pockets, heart beating fast. He had received a follow-up message from the casting team. They wanted to meet in person to talk about the short film. At a formal audition. Just a conversation. But it felt bigger than that. It felt like a door had cracked open. The cafe wasn't tea busy. Only a few people inside. Liam walked in, spotted the casting director at a table in the corner, and gave a small wave. She smiled and gestured for him to sit. "Liam, right?" "What?" she asked warmly. He nodded. "Your tape stuck with us," she said. "We're not looking for someone perfect. We're looking for someone real." Liam blinked. "I appreciate that." She leaned forward. "You're a hotel clerk in the scene. And your delivery? It didn't feel like acting, it felt lived." Liam smiled slightly, because it was. He didn't explain more. He didn't need to. The woman nodded. "We'll be in touch soon. But honestly, I just wanted to meet you. Face to face. Something told me. You were the kind of actor who needed one person to believe in him. That's how I started too." Liam walked out of the cafe 20 minutes later, not with a contract in his hand, but with something stronger. Belief, and a reason to keep going. Back at the hotel, Keanu was preparing to check out. He folded his clothes slowly, the kind of slow that happens when someone doesn't really want to leave. Not because the bed was comfortable or the room was elegant, but because something in the walls had softened something in him. He packed the notebook. Last, the pages were full now. Stories scribbled in the corners, quotes, bits of dialogue, names he might never use in a script, but all of it was real. This hotel had been a quiet chapter in his life, unexpected, unplanned, but necessary. Before zipping up his bag, he placed a small envelope on the desk near the lamp. It had Liam's name on it. Dashed downstairs, the lobby buzzed with tourists. The same front desk, the same coffee smell. But Liam didn't feel like the same person anymore. He moved differently, spoke more clearly, listened more fully. As he was logging out for his break, the concierge waved him over. Room 615 checked. Out, she said, handing him a white envelope. He left this for you. Liam opened it with careful fingers. Liam, the story isn't finished, but I think it's yours now. This envelope is the final page of my script. It's about a hotel. Clerk? A quiet one. Someone who rolled his eyes at a guest. Ended up remembering who he used to be. I don't know if the film will ever get made, but you reminded me why I started writing in the first place. If it ever does get made, I hope you'll audition for it. With deep respect, Keanu Liam stared at the page tucked inside. It was short A. Single scene, a man in a hotel lobby, stepping out from behind the counter. Walking into the world again, not sure where he was going, but finally moving. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't loud, but it felt like Liam's own footsteps on paper. He folded the note slowly, pressing the edges like it was something holy. Later that evening, Liam sat in the hotel lounge, staring out the tall windows, just like Keanu used to. The sun was setting, turning the sky a soft gold. Didn't say much, didn't write, didn't scroll his phone. He just sat, breathed. Remembered, somewhere between day and night, the manager walked in and sat across from him. I hear you're getting into acting again, she said. Liam nodded, trying. You're good with people, Liam, she said. Always have been. Even when you seem distracted. This hotel's going to miss you when you go. He looked at her, surprised. I haven't quit, she smiled. Not yet. He didn't answer, because something in her tone told him she knew, what he hadn't admitted even to himself. This chapter was ending, and that was okay. A week later, Liam got a call. He was cast in the short film. Nothing major, small budget, short script, but it was real. They wanted him to play the lead. He hung up the phone and sat in silence. Not out of shock, not even out of joy. He just wanted to feel it, really feel it. The moment he had been waiting for. It's the moment he had almost given up on. He didn't cry, he didn't shout. He just whispered, thank you. It's not to the casting director, not even to himself, but to the man who had left a note, and to movie tickets. Meanwhile, in another city, Keanu sat on a rooftop, watching lights blink across the skyline. He was no longer in the hotel, no longer near the place where it all shifted, but he thought of it often. He thought of the clerk behind the counter, who had rolled his eyes once and then learned to open his heart again. He hadn't heard from Liam. He didn't expect to. Some kindnesses don't require echoes, but still. Deep down, he hoped Liam was walking forward, because Keanu had seen enough in life to know. Sometimes the quiet ones end up telling the loudest stories. On the first day of filming, Liam stood outside the studio, holding his script in both hands. His palms were sweating. His throat was dry. He had run the lines 100 times the night before, whispered them to the ceiling, mouthed them in the side. Mira even practiced while walking up the hotel's stairs. Still, now that he was here, everything felt unreal. The director came out and gave him a soft smile. You ready? She asked. Liam exhaled. I think so. You're not here because we need perfect, she said. You're here because you made us believe. That's all we ask. He nodded slowly, and then he stepped through the doors. The set was quiet. The lights were warm, not harsh. The camera crew moved with calm focus. The room they'd built looked just like a hotel lobby. Fake marble counters. Computer monitors that didn't work. Decorative plants in the corners. Liam walked behind the counter. He stood there for a moment, staring down at the prop keyboard. Then he looked up. Across from him stood an actor playing a guest. The lines were simple. The scene was short. But Liam knew what this moment meant. Because this was no longer just a role. This was a memory. This was the day everything changed. Action. The director's voice cut through the silence. Liam straightened his back, took a breath, and stepped into the character. Not by pretending, but by remembering. The actor handed him a fake ID. Liam looked down, paused, checking in. He asked softly. The actor nodded. Room 615. Elevators to your left. His voice didn't shake. He looked up just as the actor turned away, and right before the camera cut, Liam added something unscripted. Welcome. The director paused. Hold on, she said from behind the screen. That last line that wasn't in the script. Liam froze. I can redo it. But she waved her hand. No, that was good. That felt real. Let's keep it. Liam stepped away from the counter. Someone handed him water. No one clapped. No one made a big deal. But he felt something inside settle. He had just acted in his first film, and he had made it honest. Weeks passed, the film wrapped. It wasn't huge. It wouldn't be in theaters, but it would stream online, be entered into festivals, shared in rooms where people still cared about storytelling. Liam turned to the hotel one last time. He had given his notice 2 weeks. Then he was done. He wanted to leave with respect. He wanted to say goodbye to the place where everything had changed. His final shift came quietly. No party, no balloons. Just a firm handshake from the manager, a warm hug from the concierge, and a few quiet well-wishes from staff who had started seeing him not just as a coworker but as something more. As he packed up his locker, he pulled out the envelope again. Keanu's single quotes letter. He folded it slowly. He didn't need it anymore to remind him, but he would never throw it away. 2 months later, Liam sat in the back row of a small screening room. Was being shown at a local festival. The lights dimmed, the screen flickered to life, and there he was, not polished, not famous, but real. He watched himself deliver those simple lines. He watched the story unfold, a quiet story, about change, about humility, about kindness. And when the final scene played, the one where the hotel clerk watches the guest disappear into the elevator, eyes soft with something like regret, the room went silent. Then gentle applause, not wild, not loud, but sincere. Liam didn't stand. He just smiled, because we knew what they were really clapping for. They were clapping for second. Chances miles away in another city, Keanu Reeves was walking down a quiet sidewalk. It was dusk, the kind of hour where shadows soften and streetlights start to hum. He had no idea. The film was being screened that night. He didn't know Liam had played the lead, but he paused outside a bookstore, glanced through the window, and saw a flyer. Taped to the door, indie short film. Festival, featuring the guest, inspired by a true story. He stared at the flyer. A small photo from the film. He didn't need to read the cast. He didn't need confirmation. He smiled and kept walking. That night, he sat by his window, tea in hand, notebook open again. He didn't write a script. He didn't draft dialogue. He just wrote one sentence. The quiet ones are the ones who carry the story forward, even when no one is watching. He closed the notebook and leaned back. Outside, the city moved on, but inside, something stayed still. Not empty, not aching, just at peace. And somewhere in a new apartment, Liam was setting up a small desk, placed a photo of the film set on the wall next to a handwritten quote. You once dreamed something, but you still do. He looked at it, and this time he didn't whisper thanks. He simply got to work, because now the story was his, and he was ready to tell it.